On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, why our content slowed down, Miller Hard Fit, Heat movie vests, and Facebook body parts. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Marky, and you are listening to episode 301 of the John1911 Podcast. It is currently Wednesday, May the 3rd in the evening. It's after 11, kind of a late start today, and it's going to be a solo episode, so no 2-hour podcast. We did an extra long one last time because we were behind on some stuff. So I guess old news first, I guess things to kind of address. Some of you have noticed that our publishing schedule has gotten a little bit slow over the past 10 days. And so in particular with video, there is a reason for that. Everything's fine. Those who know me know that if, as a general rule, if videos stop being published, you better send a patrol unit by for a welfare check because something's wrong. Well, in this case, nothing is wrong. There's just a lot going on that actually will be affecting the John1911 website and hopefully our listener base in a positive way. So it's kind of an investment in the future. We have lots of stuff coming, and things will be back to normal hopefully within the next week or so. Even just the fact I'm putting up this podcast is a sign that things are kind of getting back together. So nothing to really worry too much there. So everything's fine. Want to clarify some comments I had made in regards to I'm assuming I'm saying this right, the TISA 1911s from Turkey, TISAS pistols from Turkey. So I had talked about them from the NRA show, and we had seen a display, and I had expressed not rave reviews, but not all bad. And so if you were inclined to buy one or want one, you heard the positive. If you weren't inclined to buy one, you heard the negatives, which is maybe more reflection of you than it is my comments. But I've had enough inquiries about this that I feel like I need to clarify it. And kind of clarify it too, maybe in relation to all of the 1911s for sale. The argument for a TISA's 1911 or any of these overseas 1911s would be the value proposition. Maybe because of labor costs or, arbitrage in various markets, that a gun made over in certain places overseas of decent quality is not going to be as expensive as it is going to be here. That is certainly true with the, but it's a trade-off because they're not going to be handmade guns or hand-fitted guns, but it's a trade-off. And traditionally this argument has been kind of true for the Rock Island Armory RIA guns coming out of the Philippines. For $400, now there's a plane coming over, for $400, they're or a used one, they're an interesting buy, the Rock Island guns. Some of these TISAS guns are interesting buys. I think the USGI gun that like their copy of a World War II 1911 A1 gun is a good buy. I think that was like $400, and it shows some level of fitment. So for the price, I would certainly recommend probably a TISA's GI, World War II GI gun over, say, like the Springfield line that they did. Springfield had come out with some a couple years ago. But it's a balancing act. You get a $400 TISA's gun, and I'm kind of making up that number. If they're more, they're not much more, or at least the ones that I had seen. And, I had seen some TISA's guns at the NRA show that were over $1,000. And while in the long term, you can see the trend lines, maybe TISAS is going up, where they're trying to go, they're very quickly going to have the problem. They're going to develop the same problem that I have with Kimbers. Well, I have multiple problems with Kimbers, and I'm not a Kimber hater. Actually, I started with Kimbers, but again, what you hear me say and how you digest it is more reflection of your perceptions and your biases and where you want to go with the guns. Kimber came onto the scene because they provided a lot of custom features, not fitment, but features for the dollar. Like all of these, everything from extended mag releases to front cocking serrations to, it was a full length guide rod was back in the day, full length guide rod was a feature. Like it was like, wow, that's an upgrade. Like how things have changed. But what happened was Kimbers got to be more and more and more expensive, and while they're not full custom expensive, if you go looking at that Kimber case, the stuff's getting up there, and the reality is the Kimber guns aren't fit. They have no fit at all. And while they may be accurate when you shoot them, they will tend to shoot themselves loose or shoot themselves out of spec and or break themselves over time. But most people that buy those guns don't shoot them enough to break them. So, you can't fault Kimber. Kimber is making a ton of money and selling a ton of 1911s. So, there is no endorsement like a checkbook endorsement, right? But there got to be a point with the Kimber line where it was like, whoa, dudes trying to get into these guns, get into the 1911, and you got to give it to Kimber. And you look at the case and you see it's got a lot of curb appeal. You see a lot of good looking guns in that case, especially if you're, not familiar with 1911s. You're 1911 curious, and, you see all these finishes and these features and these, weird things, and what's that titanium TI finishes, and it's like it's got a lot of bling. It really attracts, the shiny object attracts the people. But if you think you're going to buy one of those guns and you're going to want to start upgrading it or modifying it or putting money into it, you're going to lose your ass on it. It's not really worth it. And what I don't want to give people unrealistic expectations about the TSIS guns. If from a fitment standpoint, from what I have seen, if you were to ask me which is better fit, a TSIS 1911 or a Kimber 1911, the TSIS appear to be wildly better fit than a Kimber, because Kimbers aren't fit at all. So you got to give that to the TSIS, okay? But when they're getting up to $1,000 or more, at the end of the day, it's still, if it's a gun that you want to swing and pay the price, shoot it, and then decide, ooh, I want to get something better, which if you're a 1911 person and you get the bug, you will trade out what you got into it, sell the gun, don't put money into it. And that's where I get nervous with some of these guns. They get more and more and more expensive. TSIS has experienced some success in the 1911 market in the United States. And you can see now that, them bitches are thirsty, and they're starting to push some stuff. And for the money, I start to worry about these guns. They're boxer razor blades. They're not finished well on the outside. They might have some curb appeal, but it's like, if you're going to buy a gun and you're going to try to, grow into it, shoot it, change stuff on it, there's an argument to be made that you could buy a Colt. Now, this is where I'm going to really flip the script here, because I started talking about TSIS. I've circled over to Kimber, and I say TSIS are better fit than Kimbers, and now all of a sudden I'm talking about Colt. And, a lot of people that don't know me or don't kind of know what's going on around here will just assume, because we're John1911, that, Colt is king. If it's not a Colt, it's a copy. Colt is shit. Colt, Colt today, the Colt guns of today are no good, in my opinion. They're no good. I think some of the, maybe like the Colt competition model has an intriguing It has an intriguing price versus value proposition, maybe that particular gun. And the only reason is because it says Colt on it, where you could take a gun, shoot it a long time, send it to a smith, make upgrades, slowly turn into a custom gun, and all the Colt guys are going to be like, well, it's a Colt. So you didn't lose your, it's not like you've got some gun where like, oh, you just upgraded a Kimber. So there is maybe that, but these Colt guns, in my opinion, aren't really any better fit than the Tisas guns. They're not better. And so if Tisas is going to start getting up to the entry-level Colt, the Colt 1911s, you might just be better off buying a Colt. So that's my point. And then finally, I'm gonna say this, because when you're dealing with 1911s or really any gun, especially as I've gotten older, and I don't mean to say that as it's like some kind of weird cop out, like as I've gotten older, but at the end of the day, it's just a gun, okay? And if a dude shows up with a gun, unless the gun is literally unsafe or literally doesn't work, I'm not going to shit on your gun. I'm not holier than thou, okay? There's a lot of guns that I like that, a lot of the world has never liked. Before 1911s got really popular with the cool kids over the past, say, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, 1911s were poo-pooed, a boomer gun, old man gun. I'm not a boomer, I've had to take that for years. I've taken that kind of argument for 30 years, and some of it was justified, but also, like, I shoot Blaser rifles, and there's still people out there today that say if, you run a Blaser, it's going to blow up in your face and kill you. So, it's not like, I'm adverse to having someone criticize a gun that I run. I'm just saying, once you own the gun, shoot the gun. As a gun person, and, don't worry so much about breaking a gun. If you're starting off in your shooting career, and whether you got a Bushmaster or a Tisas, if it's a gun that floats your boat or you're curious about it and you want to take it to classes or shoot it and try to go somewhere with your shooting career, your personal levels of achievement, shoot your gun till you break it. That's a privilege, because most of these fools that get on the internet and talk about these guns, I've had that gun for 20 years, I've never had a problem with it. It doesn't shoot it either. Breaking guns is a gift, because if you're shooting enough to break a gun, then you're learning. So you've probably learned something, and you're better than the dude who just bought the gun. So that's kind of my point on the Tisas. I'm not down on Tisas really any more than I'm down on Kimber, any more than I'm really down on Colt. The reality is, for me personally, I tend to operate at a pretty high level when it comes to 1911s. I like what I like, and, I don't tolerate a lot of things on guns. Like, the number one, and this sounds petty, but I'm being real, the number one thing that really cranks me off on any 1911 made today is if it's sharp. If it's from an American company, with the modern pistol method and the U.S. customer base, and you pick up that gun and you're trying to manipulate that gun and it's cutting your hand, or it's cutting into your skin, I'm like, what are we doing here? It's 2023. None of this is that hard. We all know that these guns need to be dehorned, and they need to be dehorned quite a bit, especially if you're going to shoot them a lot. And a gun that isn't dehorned, a 1911, but it's not just 1911s. A gun that isn't dehorned is not a gun really made for a shooter. Now, I'm not, but then again, you're going to get some guy who's, he's too cute by half, and he's going to hear me say this. He's be like, ooh, toughen up your hands. It's like, now, wait a minute. I like a grip on a gun to basically, the grip, the grip is trying to cut me, because I want that gun locked into my hand. But when I'm manipulating that slide and I'm working the control surfaces, I don't want that thing cutting, the pads of my fingers. So and these are the opinions and experiences and perspectives that only come from somebody who shoots guns and breaks guns. I don't care what gun you buy. I don't care what make it is. As long as you're shooting guns and having fun, you're getting better in life. And since we're talking about traditional 1911s, I have a thought. I want to share it, and I was reticent to say it, but I'm considering intentionally carrying my single stack Wilson Experior as my daily carry, maybe for the next couple of months. It's a appendix and all that still too. It doesn't have a red dot on it. It's going to be fiber optic front sight, but I like the EDC X9L gun. It's my daily carry. It's got 18+1 rounds in it, red dot, all the bells and whistles, right? And it's great. I have to tell you, every time I get the Experior, I keep the Experior in the truck. The Experior basically lives as my backup gun, or my traditional gun, or my iron-sighted gun. If the EDC X9L is my full-size service pistol, and you know how those people that I can't carry a duty pistol. I have to carry a subcompact, or their Shield, or their P365. The Wilson Experior 5-inch single stack 1911 all steel is my compact gun, because they're so thin. Full size 1911s are so thin, and I just love the gun. Like, every time I dry fire with it or I shoot it, I'm like, man, why am I not carrying this more? I've got a holster for it, and I'm thinking about doing that. Maybe even just because a lot of the 1911 videos that we shoot for drills, I think some people would like to see an actual single stack gun shooting those drills. Even though I shoot the drills with 8 or 10 round limits, because they're 1911 drills, I think some people would like to do that. So you may start to see more of the Experior, just because that is without a doubt my most favorite pistol, even more than my work gun. So, but don't give me a hard time if you don't see it all the time. Administrative note for the website. So this came up. This has come up before, and I haven't really had to address it in a while. But we've had a number of people reaching out wanting to give us content for the website, and sometimes it can be pretty high end content. And every once in a while, somebody will want to submit something that I think is so high end, I need to alert them to a policy that we have at John1911.com. And what I mean by that is, like, there was a gentleman who has been reaching out, and he is a very, very high end 1911 collector, apparently. We'll just leave it at that. And so what he has is so impressive, it would not be beyond the realm of possibility that one day he may very well write a book. And so it occurred to me, he's like, yeah, we'd love to have some articles and, historical stuff. Because, again, I'm a shooter. I know basic history. I'm not a researcher on 1911s like that, or on guns like that. So, but I had to warn him. I said, look, understand something. You submit content to the John1911.com website, and it gets published. It's never coming down. We own it. And when I say we own it, it's not that we own it. It's probably the wrong way to say it. But we're going to watermark the pictures, even though you took the pictures. And once that article hits the website, it's never, ever, ever, ever coming off the website. We don't do that. I could make a crude joke about, it's a one-way hole, but I'm not going to do that. But it's like, if you are, you're right up on your collection, and it's a high-end collection, and you take a bunch of pictures and you give it to us and we put it up on the website, then 5 years from now, you decide you want to write a book, and then what you wrote for our article could be a good chapter, and you would prefer that it comes down off the website because it's going to be in your book. It's like, no way. That will never happen. So, I mean, we have to give the warning. Article goes up on the website, it never, ever, ever comes down. So if you are considering submitting stuff to us, we'd love to have it, especially if it's good or if it's interesting or something that we don't do or have. Reach out at podcast@john1911.com, podcast@john1911.com. We'd love to hear from you. Just understand, once it's up, it is up. I'm realizing this is turning into a very 1911 heavy episode, so for that I apologize. So because of the person in particular that has reached out, and I'm real excited to have his stuff for the website. He had made a comment in email exchange. He might very well even be listening to this podcast, and something along the lines of, he was showing me some stuff that he has and explaining the historical significance of it. And I immediately see it. And, the rarity of these particular 1911s. And he made a comment along the lines of, well, of course, how I obviously understand, or how I see something. And it's like, well, no, I don't, just understand, I'm not a collector. Like, we run a reference collection, not a variant collection. We're a type collection, not a variant collection. So if a variant collection would be, I don't know, like a penny from every mint in the United States, one from the Denver Mint, one from the Philadelphia Mint. A variant collection would be, a spring, a Remington Colt, a Colt, which, Colt 1911 or Remington 1911, Union Signal and Switch 1911. You could do all the variants. We run a type collection. So basically, once we have an FNC rifle, we don't need to build an AK-5. If you know what an FNC, you might know what an AK-5 is. If we get a Russian AK-47, semi-automatic AK-47, and it comes from, whatever arsenal, and there's another one from another arsenal, and it's functionally the same gun with the same, same configuration. Yeah, we don't need two. We don't need two of them, unless it's a working gun that needs a backup. If it's a reference gun, if it's a type gun, we're okay with the type, but we don't do the thing. So, what does this have to do with this conversation? So, I learned a long time ago with the firearms community, and I got to be careful. This criticism is more me than it's all me. It's not the firearms community. If you're a variant collector of guns, Mausers, whatever, that's great. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of effort. That's a lot of research. That's a lot of interest, mental energy, and a lot of networking and shopping and trading and all that kind of stuff. But I noticed a long time ago that market is so rarefied and can be so particular that for me, it's not enjoyable. And, the little things can make a big difference in value. One little mark or one little this or one little that. You think you have something that's valuable, and it turns out you don't, and you overpaid for it. Or you think you have something which you think you've priced it for, or how you value it, and someone else, you think you make a fair trade, and someone else realizes it's got some riboflavin marking on it from some group, and you don't, it's a one of one gun, and it's worth $1 million, and no one told you until they took you for it. And the fact that I said they took you for it is my problem. I don't find the high-end collectible market enjoyable, because there's so much at stake that's why we don't, like, we've occasionally had stuff, like we've had stuff come into the armory where maybe there'll be an estate and there's an opportunity to purchase a particular weapon that we want, but it'll be a package deal and we have to buy basically the entire estate. And so what we will do is we will get what we want and then we'll part out the rest of it. And in particular, there's been some cases where there's things that we wanted to have, and then elements that came in with that collection were extremely valuable, and we didn't even realize it, because again, we're not variant collectors. So, maybe we didn't give the estate the money that the gun was worth because we didn't know it was just a dusty Mauser or just some, whatever. And it's like, well, we've got 5 of those. We don't need that. And so, but we're starting to go through it and look at it and we're like, oh my God, this super thing's super rare and the condition this, and it's from this arsenal or from this group and they were all destroyed. Get it the hell out of here. And like, we're like, get it the hell out of here, because it's not fun for us. Like, we'd rather have a gun that we could take out and shoot, or do videos with, or just experiment with, or maybe run drills with, or just take it apart to do pictures. If we scratch it, we do whatever. If we break something on it, just get it fixed, weld it up, buy a part. But if it's some uber collectible gun, that just it's just like the idea of, I don't buy lottery tickets, but I think the worst thing you could do would be to buy a lottery ticket and then throw it away in the garbage and always wonder if you did win. I don't like to buy the lottery tickets. We don't like to play the game. So that's why we're not really the variant collector type. And that's why if you're a higher end collector and you want to send us some articles or content, we'd love to have it. Just give me a little grace by not whacking me too hard on the things that you are surprised I don't know. So I promise you, I am the dumbest person in your podcast universe. So, but the difference between me and everybody else is at least I admit my stupidity. I'm the guy that will raise my hand, in a group of people, like, and they're explaining this and whatever, and it's high pressure and this and blah, 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 blah. Does anyone have any questions? And no one's going to ask any questions because no one wants to look stupid. Not me. Excuse me. What does the X value of this be? Explain this to me again, because I don't understand what you just said. So I'm that guy. Unfortunately or unfortunately for you, I'm the guy that also puts the website together and publishes the podcast. So hopefully I keep your attention and not come off as too stupid. Okay, a couple more fun topics to go into. So we get some interesting emails from our regulars, and I have to be careful, or private messages too. I have to be careful because I need to do a better job of keeping track of, like, can I cite your name if I discuss this? And so we had someone send us, I guess these must be coming out of Eastern Europe. So people, I guess, they're digging up a bunch of relics have hit the market. And I don't know what this has to do with the war in Ukraine or what's going on, but like, it was a pretty interesting Luger that, was pretty roached out and pretty crusty. And, you could never shoot this thing, but, clean it up, get the rust to stop on it. Be interesting wall hanger, that kind of stuff. I thought that was kind of neat. I appreciate those kind of emails. Also, just because, we always have to be financially, responsible. We're based in Ohio, and this is going to come as a shock to a lot of you. Ohio is not the cheapest place in America, and it's not an expensive place, but one area where Ohio is expensive for a kind of Republican-controlled state is on taxes. So that's a reason why maybe you might see a lot of Ohioans, when they retire, they may move to another state. So, I'm always keeping an open mind, looking at opportunities or property or real estate or listings in other states because tax benefits and whatever. So what's the first thing I would have to do is I would need to build a gun range for John 1911, have to move the armory and a gun range. And, we'd get something bigger. So anyway, all of that came up, and this came across. Somebody found 6,800 acres for sale. You heard that right. 6,800 acres in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And for the price, I don't remember. I guess I could do if you want to do the math, I don't have it. But I remember it worked out to $151 an acre. And I'm thinking, damn, like, what swamp is this? But, but it's like, why is it so cheap? And then it was pointed out in the office that, I live in Ohio. And while I am from Virginia and West Virginia, my mother had a very pronounced Southern accent, and I am occasionally been laughed at by these Yankees up here for how I say certain words, like orange. Apparently, I say orange funny, especially in Bengal territory. And I remember as a kid, I remember being in kindergarten, and other kids were making fun of me for the way I said yellow, because as a young child, apparently I said yallow. And I got broke of that one, but I still say orange funny. So, but anyway, it was pointed out to me that the way I talk and where we would be moving from, that Ulysses S. Grant killed a lot of dudes in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and I don't know how well I would go over. So if you are in Mississippi, and I did want to move the John 1911 business to Mississippi for taxes and whatever, would you all be nice to me? Give me feedback at podcast@john1911.com. And this is a good segue into this episode's sponsor, Patriot Power Generator. National security experts are warning our aging power grid is more vulnerable than ever. January marked the third time a power station in North Carolina was damaged by gunfire recently. Authorities are saying the attack, quote, raises a new level of threat. Authorities are now checking our grid for vulnerabilities. They've identified 9 key substations. If these substations are attacked, power could be knocked out from coast to coast for up to 18 months. Imagine a blackout lasting not days, but weeks or months. Your life would be frozen in time right at the moment the power fails. Lights all over the country would go out, throwing people into total darkness. That's why having your own solar power is more important than ever. With new Patriot Power Generator 2000X, you get a solar generator that doesn't install into your house because it's portable. You can take it with you, even use it inside. But it's powerful enough for your phones, medical devices, or even your fridge. And right now you can go to 4patriots.com, that's the number 4patriots.com, and use code John1911 to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including the Patriot Power Generator. You'll get all their famous you'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after you order, plus free shipping on orders over $97, and a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Just go to 4patriots.com and use code John1911 to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com. Use code John1911 to get yours today. Whew, how's that for a live read, right? You hear the sheets? So, yeah, we do live reads here. So, a solar-powered generator that can power your refrigerator. I gotta admit, that's pretty interesting. So, continuing on, did I talk about, I guess I'm going to, because you can't answer me. Did I talk about the old school Surefire weapons light that Doc had dug up and he brought it over here to the armory? So it's the, you change the entire fore end. Hey kids, before we had M-Lock and before we had 1911 pick rails all on the front of our rifles, the only way to really get a light up there on the front, you had to buy an entire fore end kit for your AR. And Doc had gotten one of these through one of the PDs, oh my God, 20 years ago. I guess it was maybe not 20 years ago, but it was a long time ago. I think before I knew Doc. And, he's cleaning out some stuff, and he wanted to know if we wanted it. I was like, well, hell yeah, we'll take that. We can, I'll do the retro guns, right? I mean, that's all the cool, all the guns. Let me just make this observation. It's 2023. I remember owning an AR-15 in 2000 and I don't know, it probably was 2000 or 2000. I don't know if it was before or after 9/11. And I was debating taking a hacksaw and cutting the carry handle. What you do is you would cut the carry handle. You would leave what the hell we were doing? They were cutting, would you leave part of the rear sight and then cut the rest of the handle off, and then maybe you would tack weld something in the space in front of it to try to mount stuff. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, what you can do today with removable carry handles and doing all this other kind of stuff. And now we've gone from me wanting to cut carry handles to Doc has now got an old giant Surefire. Probably, theirs originally were 60 lumens. I think theirs are now up to 124 lumens, 125 lumens. And wanting to find a surplus carry handle M4 to put this on just so I could, shoot it for giggles and, feel like an old guy with the guns from, we had from 20, 30 years ago. So, I got an email today, as all of you did, from AIM Surplus, which is right up the street from us. And they had some right on cue some Bushmaster police trade-in AR carbines. Unfortunately, their carbines are flat topped, and it's like, well, I could do a flat top. They've got irons on them. It's got the full sight post on the front, but it's a flat top in the back. It's like, well, I don't know. They're not that much money, and it's a Bushmaster. Who cares? It's fine. But should I do a carry handle gun? I don't know. I mean, if I do a flat top with this flashlight, I mean, what am I going to do? Put a red dot on top of it, like a regular red dot? How's that any different than our current guns? It's like, well, if I did a carry handle gun and then maybe got some old timey, Aimpoint 2000 or Aimpoint 5000 red dot, and now suddenly I've got, instead of the 193 riser, you've got whatever the height is, it's like a chin weld, and everything old is new again. So if you know where I can find a carry handled, I guess a complete gun, because right now all my lowers are used up on other projects trying to get other things running. But we'd love to get this Surefire weapons light mounted and maybe just make some videos on the range with it. Speaking of police trade-ins, and again, because I didn't ask you if I could use your name or even a reference, but you know who you are. I know who you are. I know where you work and what department you work and what state you work in. I know, but I'm not going to say it. So, a friend, Regular, he shared a story out of Nashville, because there's been, obviously, Nashville's been in the news. It's been unfortunate. There's, seems like there's always something going on. We can't put crazy in jail, so until they commit a felony or a serious crime. So, that's the world we live in. So, but anyway, apparently the Nashville Police Department is sitting on 40,000 firearms, and they're going to auction them off. And speaking of police trade-ins, and it's going to be super interesting to see what's in there. As a matter of fact, it reminds me, I need to contact, there is a PD property room I need to contact. I have to reach out to them every so often to see if they've recovered some stuff that we had stolen 30 years ago. And occasionally some stuff. It was a lot. We let's see. A couple high-end gun stores got hit by these professional gun thieves, and we got hit. So if that is a glimpse into how we operate today, it is a glimpse into how we operate today and why because of the disasters that happened in the 90s. So anyway, if anyone has any more information on the Nashville potentially auctioning off firearms, I'd love to have more information. It's not that far away. I don't know if they would do bidding online. I mean, there's going to be a lot of crap, but you can always run into some gems. I know that we have some gems floating out there in property rooms. So, if we can't, and let me tell you this. If you're not aware, again, every police department's different, and it depends on the detective, and it depends on the property room, and just a lot of things. It's been my personal experience and my professional observation that a police property room will not bend over backwards to try to get you your gun back. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying they're trying to take your shit. They're not trying to take your shit. They just don't care. They're busy. You know what I mean? They've got so much stuff going on and stuff coming in, and stuff's got to be cycled over for trials, and, stuff that's got to be shipped out to other PDs if it gets recovered locally and is a hit, got to be, to a different jurisdiction. And so, if they have a smattering of contact information for you, or, maybe a police report, or just maybe a little bit of like, hey, John Doe, this is this is specialist so-and-so down at the Metro property room at 103 Broadway. We have a firearm down here belongs to you. If they call one number or do one thing and it's, a disconnected whatever, or they don't care. They're like, I tried, whatever, it's done. And so if you have ever had guns stolen or lost, and you have a police report, it would behoove you to every, say, couple years at least to contact that local police department or that property room and just be like, don't necessarily contact the detective you're dealing with or dealt with. That person could be gone. Contact the property room, be like, here's my police report. Here's a serial number, and they go, hold on, and you will find this. Sometimes stuff pops up. We have literally recovered John 1911 Armory equipment that way. So they could not be bothered to try to track us down. Never mind, we do business with that department, and, that's just kind of how bureaucracy works. But I'd be super curious to see what's going on with Nashville and the potential auctions, because, you always wonder if like a Sturmgewehr or something, some pre-86 gun's going to come out of a collection. You always have that rumor, like, you contact some local, small PD in some broke county somewhere, and they go down to the basement of the jail, and there's some rack in the rack. There's a bunch of Tommy guns, that they didn't know what they were, and they were just down there, and they're like, well, they're, we don't use them, and don't realize that they've got, $300,000 worth of machine guns down there that are transferable. So, those are the dreams. And so it's kind of like treasure hunting. And so it's going to be interesting to see for the treasure hunters if Nashville can do the auction, and if there's not some kind of political blowback or whatever. But, we definitely will, if you have more information, let me know. Couple more email feedbacks from people from the last episode. Yeah, the last episode. Go through these real quick. One of them is kind of brought up a subject of a pet peeve of mine. Somebody was asking about I guess it was a Les Bear, and what I think of a Les Bear. It's a good gun. They're a little tight for my liking. They're, they can be a little rough. I don't care about the finish. I want them dehorned and all that kind of thing, right? And I've talked to Les Bear about, I've literally talked to him face to face about how tight his guns were fit. And it's mine, and it was, oh my God, 2023. It was probably 12 or 13 years ago that I talked to Les about how tight his guns were, and he admitted to me, he's like, I've told my guys to back off on that because they were getting to be too tight. And the reason I'm saying this is somebody was reaching out, wanting to know what I thought of a Les Bear. Yeah, hey, get it, especially at a used price. And he said, well, because it's hard fit. And I'm like, oh boy. I'm not going to get into it here. I don't know if Les Bears are hard fit, but you can tell you've got a bunch of dudes sitting around talking about stuff. They don't know what they're talking about. And when I hear the term hard fit in a 1911, that is a very specific thing. And it has nothing to do with the slide to frame fit on like, oh man, this Les Bear is too hard to get open with the hammer down. It's the hard fit is in reference to the Miller hard fit, who was a gunsmith at the Army Marksmanship Unit, AMU. And it was the method he had for fitting barrels on 1911s that they would shoot in competition. Now, because you say AMU hard fit, Miller hard fit, it's like, that's what you want. Well, neither here nor there. That is something that's desirable, but there are other gunsmiths who believe that that is not the way to fit a barrel because it, I think their argument is it can actually, it collides. They want to control the fit, not have the fit slam into the fit. If that makes sense. I'm kind of, but my point is, and look, I'm not the guy to talk to about Miller hard fitting, but what I do know this, because I'm the dumbest person on the internet, hard fit in 1911s and tight slides, no, that is not it. Don't use that phrase. That phrase has a specific meaning. Hard fit does not mean a Les Bear tight frame and slide. Another thing, and I saw this, I literally was like, this can't be real. Guy sent me an email, and there's a company out there that makes 1911s called Alchemy. And I have a confession. I'm not a boomer, but, I was out of the 1911, area for about 10 years and, got back into it. And I was in it real heavy for a long time, decades. And because, got back into it because the 9mm, they're running now. And I missed Alchemy and Cabot. Like, they kind of came up when I was gone, and so I'm not really that familiar with them. There's a dealer here in Cincinnati, north of the city, that sells a lot of the Cabot guns, and not all of them, but in my opinion, most of them are as ugly as the day is long. They are horrendously expensive. And there's some, because someone's gonna roll up with some Alchemy gun and be like, look at this. I'd be like, God, that's gorgeous. But a lot of them are just super gaudy, and it's just Cabot guns. Cabot and Alchemy are the same company, but Cabot does these super gaudy guns. I guess Alchemy is their shooter grade. I'm not gonna say shooter grade, but they're more of their like classical design, maybe. That makes sense. So, if you're going to have a gun that's in pink gold from Cabot, that's not classical in design. So Alchemy is their classic design department, right? So a guy sends me a picture of a 1911 from Alchemy that doesn't have the scalloped frame behind the trigger guard that the Army did in the 1911 A1 upgrades. And, because this is a new production frame, and it's got all this kind of fancier stuff on it. It's a 1911 new production, and it doesn't have these cuts, these scallops, the relief behind the trigger guard. And the reason you would have that is because you're trying to limit the amount of finger for shorter hands to give an angle to clear to reach the triggers on these guns. But in a modern pistol context, you want that removed, and you want actually above the trigger rounded as much as you can to keep your finger behind your trigger finger, not your last pad digit, but the middle section of your finger from touching the frame or disrupting the gun. And if you remove that material and give your finger more room, in some people, in some grips, you'll notice, and this is where, you're kind of in a weird area with 1911s. Everyone loves that high beaver tail, and everyone likes that high grip. We all like it. I mean, that's what I want on my guns. You get as high as you can to get the axis of the bore down, and there's less perceived muzzle flip because you can kind of a little bit more of control over the gun. But when you go high and high, if you look at your finger, and everyone's different. It depends on the size of your hands. I have large-ish hands with long fingers, and so I have to be careful because my middle section of my trigger finger can rub on a frame. And, Alchemy is selling guns made in 2023. I think it was just a particular model. I don't think it's all of them that didn't have this. And I was so shocked because I didn't even see it. And I'm like, no, dude, I hate that. We're in this area with 1911s because there's so many people making them, and everybody's got to try to find a new way to be different, that they got to just start making shit up. And look, I'm not telling Alchemy how to make guns, and Alchemy doesn't care what I think. They can build guns, I cannot. But I saw that and I'm like, dude, you gotta come on. And you're charging. I was just like, okay, fine. I guess the argument was the owner of the company just doesn't like those cuts. The argument is it's a classic thing. I don't know. When did a 1911 A1 come out? That's pretty classic. I mean, that was in the 20s, right? Or was it the 30s? It's like, that's a long time, 90 years, or 100 years. So, I don't know. You're asking me, and you put two guns down on the table, both from Alchemy, exactly the same. I will never, ever buy a gun that's like that. The only gun we have in the armory that doesn't have those scallops is an original 1914 Colt that, guess what? It rubs on your fingers if you got certain size fingers. So yeah, no, don't buy that. I mean, if you're going to be a shooter, don't buy that, because if nothing else, you go to sell the gun, or your buddy, or maybe your girlfriend or your wife, or your big-handed mama, just like, what are we doing here? Or if you got someone with really, really, really small hands, and that, you got short fingers, and you need as much room as you can to clear, to hit, you put a short trigger in the gun and you're trying to clear that pad. It's just like, oh Lord, it's just, I just rather spend the time with the timer, on the range, shooting the guns and trying to be as good as I can, because some of the stuff gets to be a little much. Another thing, I guess, that came up, and I know this person, I'm actually looking at your name, but you're gonna remain anonymous. I had made a kind of a throwaway comment about a SCAR rifle in the last episode. So, Doc is probably going to be getting out of his SCAR 20, for various reasons. It is what it is. I think he had more luck with his SCAR 17 than his SCAR 20. He is one of the early ones with the 1 in 12 twist 308. Kraken is now taken possession of a 308 1 in 10 twist modern SCAR. And so I made a comment about, how it seemed like a lot of people that had been playing with the SCARs and using the SCARs had kind of moved away from them. And, I have a SCAR 16. I mean, where I used to work, they basically I'd need a rifle, and they're like, here, you're running a SCAR. I'm like, okay. And that's how I have a SCAR. I like them. They're nice guns. but I made a comment about, I'd seen some Rangers with some scars years ago, and I know the SEALs had done some stuff with scars, and we had feedback from a regular listener friend who I appreciate, but I'm not going to use this person's name. And he said he wanted to say this about the scar, so I'm going to share it with you. Good morning. Not sure about regiment. He's talking about the Ranger regiment. But most of the scars I'd seen just sat in the rack in the team rooms, to include Oconus, outside the United States, collecting dust. Most, quote, long-range shooting I have seen or was part of, we used the SAS, Mark 22, or M2010. Also, I ran a Mark 18 with a suppressor, and that blowback sucks. A great podcast, and I hope that info helps. It does. I think the SCAR program, I think it had a lot of I think what it was sold as was very exciting, but I think it was a combination of, some of it was oversold, and I think a lot of the AR-15 M16 family, felt the heat and made improvements with modularity and things, and I think that staved off the SCAR. I mean, obviously, the SIG, I call it the M5, but now they can't call it the M5. Whatever the Spear, the 6.8 caliber gun, whatever that, the 6.8 by 51 gun, like whatever the thing's called now, I still call it the M5. But Colt, I guess, says you can't do that. So anyway, thank you for the email. And if you have any more feedback on, things that, we talked about, please, podcast at John1911.com. A couple other things, interesting industry news, and then we'll probably start heading out here. Somebody reached out, because we do have a collection of anti-tank weapons here at the Armory. Well, not here, because I'm not in the Armory. At John1911, and they had said that Atlantic Firearms has reproduction RPG-7s, and thought we would find that interesting. And I'm like, we would not be finding that interesting. Who wants a reproduction RPG-7 unless you want to take it, to show and tell day at, your local kindergarten or something? Like, I mean, don't do that. That's a joke. Don't cancel me now. It's like, no, we would not, I don't, we don't buy resin guns, and we don't buy, reproduction stuff. Everything we have is real. Some of it's functional, some of it isn't, or it's used, it's one shot, but no, we wouldn't be interested in that. Now, something that a lot of you could be interested in, and this is another example of, it's good marketing. It really, really, really is. But when you actually look at the product objectively, once I tell you what it is, and if you can't objectively determine that this is a piece of shit, however cool that it may be, you may have some biasy issues. So who listened to this podcast has seen the movie Heat, right? It's got the Val Kilmer and the De Niro and who's the other guy? It's got all the people in it. All the people. It's got the famous FNC scene and the famous, or the big, they still use that scene to teach, some small unit tactics, just basic, overmounding and stuff. I've heard rumors that, sometimes that sections of that movie will be shown to people being trained, like to just introduce concepts of, Overwatch and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I guess it's I don't know if they all wore the same vest or if it's just the one character, but there's a vest that is made for the movie. It doesn't exist. And a company called Esotech they've watched the movie enough, or they've consulted with the people, and they have reproduced this vest from the movie Heat with all of the AR mags on your body. And it looks cool because you can tell it's a vest for a camera, so you can see the magazines and the loadout. it's not a vest that's practical. And so the magazines are all turned all these different ways, just like in the movie. But like, it's going to be crazy pulling out a mag up. Then this one you pull it sideways, this one you pull this way, and this one you pull that way. But if you want to buy, they call it this is the best part, because the vest doesn't have a name, and they're not going to call it the heat vest. They might get, number one, that might mean something else, but number two, they might get sued by Paramount or whoever has the movie. So they call it the 30 seconds vest, because there's a line in the movie that says when the two dudes are sitting, at the table, and if you feel the heat come around the corner and you don't get involved with getting involved with a woman, that you can't walk away in 30 seconds flat. Like, man, like, it's a cool scene, but if you think about that, damn, that's terrible. Just like everything about it is terrible. So, but anyway, the vest is called the 30 seconds vest, and Kraken and I were talking about it, and I think they wanted about $130 or $150 for it, and it's like, I don't know. Maybe just to make a goofy video, but I don't know. Do I make goofy videos? Other than like embarrassing myself on video. But, if you are interested in, we're so busy, I don't have time to make a video on the 30 seconds vest, but they're out there. If you want a vest from the movie Heat, you can get them for about $150. So, the other interesting news is, the Beretta 1301 shotgun, has been a great success. I've heard the problems with the Beretta 1301 are getting parts for it if you break them. They apparently, will break. After many thousands of rounds, I'm, I don't know, hearing 4, 5, 6,000 rounds, but the thing is, it's getting parts. Maybe that was because of COVID, but, and plus they're expensive because they're an Italian-made gun. Well, Beretta has their semi-automatic, sporting gun called the A300. And so they have now taken that action, which I'm probably is the same as the 1301, but it's made in the USA, and they've turned it into a riot. They've a semi-automatic, like, tactical shotgun, and it's called the Beretta A300 Tactical, I guess. And, we're watching it. You're starting to see some of the usual suspects do the reviews and whatever. And, that's definitely something that's got our attention, and we're paying attention to, because we do have some shotgun stuff coming up, and we actually have a lot of shotguns that most of you have never seen. Some pretty rare ones too, really rare ones, like semi-automatic stuff. We should probably do some more shotgun stuff. Tell you what, if you want to see more shotgun stuff, podcast at John1911.com. Give us some feedback. As a matter of fact, if there's some kind of drill or standard or something, give me some suggestions. Like, I'm not like a heavily trained shotgun guy. I've never had formal training on a shotgun. So anything that I would do with a shotgun, be honest with you, I'm going to pick it up off the internet. I know some of the concepts, but I've certainly never taught it. And I've never been really trained on it, but I've, had shotguns. There's a Mossberg 590 that I've had for 30 some years that's in the closet, probably 15, 20 feet from where I'm sitting right now, because it's always there, and I've always had that shotgun. I should probably shoot shotguns more, right? Well, if you have any suggestions or content you'd like to see regarding shotguns, please send them my way, because we could use a little bit of feedback on that and some direction. And we're getting right at about an hour, so let's go ahead and do the police blotter and toss this. So, first thing with the police blotter is out of San Francisco, and this is regarding Nordstrom, the department store, and this is a police blotter story, and the reason it is because the crime in San Francisco is so out of control that none of the businesses can afford to stay open, or their employees aren't safe. And there comes a point, if the employees aren't safe and you don't do something about it, you open yourself up to a vulnerability, and I, as a business owner, understand that. Like, I'm like, just keep going to work, it'll be fine. Like, no, you get hurt, and I'm going to get sued. Like, there comes a point of, you have to have a responsibility, to provide a safe workplace. And if you can't do it, you got to shut it down. So Nordstrom has shut down its two department stores. And Nordstrom is always kind of a higher end department store. It's not high end in New York City, but it's high end in the rest of the country. And what I thought was interesting is fancy San Francisco has 0 Nordstroms now. Cincinnati has one. I think Columbus has one. Indianapolis has one. San Francisco? Nope, they don't have any. So that's good. That's good governance right there, you know. The next story comes out of Texas. It was kind of a weird... It came across super weird story, and it was like, this is weird. And it was reported that there was a guy in his front yard at 11 o'clock at night shooting an AR-15. Like, I guess he was target shooting in his front yard, you know, and he didn't live on a 600-acre farm. And so he's shooting, and one of the neighbors came out and was like, yo, dude, you think you could, you know, knock it off, because we're all trying to go to bed and I got a baby and I got to go to work in the morning. And so this guy, he lost his shit and shot, I think killed 5 people and then went on the run. I think they caught him like literally today. But it's interesting. So this is interesting I'm about to tell you. When they went into his house and they found out who this guy was, he's not just a guy with an AR-15. I mean, that's America's gun. Everyone's got an AR-15. He had in his bedroom a giant altar created for this weird, for like one of these death cult things out of Mexico. Okay? Like this, like, you know, like this occultist death. Like he had a shrine, like a giant shrine in his bedroom to this death cult. He also apparently had cartel tattoos on his body for like one of the cartels, you know, drug running cartels. And, oh, by the way, he was an illegal alien. And so, you know, none of this really matters, because if you don't enforce the law, a myriad of laws or reasons why this should have never happened. You know, he's crazy. He probably shouldn't have had an AR-15. He's an illegal. He probably shouldn't have been in the country. He's a cartel person. He certainly shouldn't be able to, you know, pass a 4473 filling out the form, illegal user of drugs or narcotics. But somehow, you know, this is where we are, because you let crazy walk free until it catches a case. So, and the last case of the police blotter is going to be out of Arkansas. Sorry, Arkansas, but you're the ones going to get it tonight. Mortuary worker indicted for selling 11,000 in body parts on Facebook Marketplace. I thought just looking for tractor attachments was interesting on Facebook Marketplace. Well, this wraps up episode 301 of the John1911 Podcast. If you want to see any more stories or pictures or links of anything we discuss, please go to the website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and finding body parts on Facebook. Everybody, have a good night.